Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Business Week at Oak Valley College. And this week, it's just you and me. I'm Mark Leonard, Executive Vice President at Oak Valley College, and we have here, who are you?
I'm President of Oak Valley College. I'm Eric Blum.
So this week, since this is about the fourth time we've tried to record this video, I figured that would be appropriate. It would be appropriate to talk about failure this
week. Yeah. We're doing a good job of failure today.
Yes, we are in practice right now. So, people in entrepreneurship circles are always saying that we should embrace failure. And the quote that comes to mind is if you're not failing, you're not trying. That's what entrepreneurs say to themselves. Sure. So do you believe that? Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's a reality to failure that, you need to always be kind of pushing the envelope. And there's degrees of it. I mean, there's people that you see out there, obviously, that fail all the time. And you say, you got to try something different, give up or change directions or change where you're going. But one of my best mentors when I started my career, he figured, of all the things you do, you should be failing about 30% of the time. And I was interested in that because he said, if you're not failing at all, if you're not really experimenting, you're not exploring. And he was an entrepreneur and he was a great mentor. And I really trusted that opinion of him, is to say, if you get in your routine and you're just stuck and you're not really pushing that envelope, then you're really not exploring. And you're not innovating, and you're not growing. So I think there's some truth to that.
So yeah, the extreme version that I think of is if you want to go through a 24-hour period without failing, then maybe you just stay in bed that day.
Although that could be considered a failure too.
Yeah. So what kind of advice do you give Oak Valley College students about failure? And that could be, you could take that any direction you want as far as if a student feels like they're failing, or if you're talking more generally about how to use failure to be successful.
Right, to be successful. Well, the main thing I encourage students to do is to ask questions. And the point of that is, in asking the questions, you hopefully can figure out why you're failing or what you're failing at. And so the notion there too is, as a student, you have to be failing something. Otherwise, it's either too easy or you're not pushing yourself. And so you have to be able to explain. The interesting thing that I know about our students, and I think in general about this generation, is that, the avoidance issue is a huge thing, as they tend to avoid the strategies to be able to get you on path and be successful, but to understand that the failure is something that we have to explore. You have to dig deeper in terms of understanding exactly what's causing you to be lost and what exactly you're failing at, and how to then turn that into a success.
Right. But if nobody ever asks for help, nobody raises their hand and says that.
Right.
You just stay lost.
Right. And you can see that, I know in your teaching and seeing that in the classroom too, is that blank stare, is to say that's, when you see that glaze over a student's eyes and you know that they're lost, that they're lost. And that's what's really intriguing, is they know that they're lost, but then they hide behind it and say, I'm fine. It was funny. I had a professor once who went around campus, very bizarre, but he went around campus and students would say, "How you doing?" And he'd say hi, because he, instead of "I'm fine" or anything like that, because that's what how are you doing really means to most people. It's not really asking it. Sure. Yeah, it's hello. And so the question is, when you ask a student that, "How are you doing?" they're going to say, "I'm fine." And that doesn't mean anything, because that question has lost all meaning and that's why you have to say, how can I help you? And how can I get you on track? And those kind of things, really strategic and tactical questions to get them to know that they're failing and to help them reorient and to know where they're lost so they can get back on that path and get their GPS aligned with where they need to go.
Yeah. I'm fine is a very good Sunday morning answer.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's it's again, for everybody, it's the kind of avoidance answer, is to say, I don't want to get, I assume you don't want all this information, and I don't want to give you a whole lot of information. Yeah, I've got cancer. I don't want to have that conversation with you, because that's a very uncomfortable conversation. Same thing with students, is to say, I really don't know what's going on in class. So you ask them, how's it going? Oh, it's going fine. Even though you've got an F or whatever, it's
that's not going to get them any further than they are right now.
Right.
You have to say, I'm not fine.
And that's where, the biggest thing I always reiterate to students is to say, just to get the courage up to say, I'm lost. I think one of the big challenges is that they feel like they shouldn't be lost. And I think Google and all this other stuff kind of has pointed them indirectly into that direction, is to say, because when we grew up, if we wanted to go to downtown LA and we'd never been there before, you actually had to ask somebody for help.
Yeah.
Now, they've got all these tools in their toolbox where they assume that they may have the answer to everything.
You ask someone who doesn't judge you on your phone for help. Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's, what's the answer to this problem? And, I think it's really cool and amazing that, you get a calculus problem and you can just click it and it'll show you the answer for that exact math problem through an app. But it really doesn't help the student in terms of understanding when they truly are lost, how to get back on track.
So thinking about, if you were to think about people that you admire for the things that they've been able to get done in their life, can you think of stories or think of a person who went through several stages of failure before they got to that success that kind of made them famous?
Sure. I mean, there's great examples, and I know lots of personal examples. Okay, we're back. So another failure.
Yeah.
Land the rockets back on Earth, and if you followed any of that,
they kept falling over.
They blow up or they fall over and all that sort of stuff. But it truly is rocket science.
Yes,
it really was rocket science. But what's amazing about anybody who really does this and really embraces failure is really the enthusiasm and the idea that that we're on this path and we're going to make it. It's just a question of, how do we get there and when. And, that's what's so incredible about him and Steve Jobs, obviously, incredible failure, being fired from Apple. That's one thing that's really amazing. Yeah. Lots of people don't know that, but he actually got fired from Apple because he just ran his board into the ground and his board said, "You're gone." Yeah. And then they ran Apple into the ground. But anyways, to make a long story short, but the ultimate success of all those guys and everybody that I know who I admire and really is the optimism, is to say we're on the right path. It's just that we get thrown off every once in a while, and that's okay. It's a little sidetrack. And again, like with Elon Musk and SpaceX, you're doing rocket science. You absolutely know that to get to the end, you're going to fail multiple times.
Yeah. But that he had people in his circles, I'm sure, that after his fourth rocket fell over and blew up on the ground, were saying, "Hey, maybe you should just stick with Tesla.
Right.
I mean, why are you doing it? You're crazy. Right. Why are you doing this?
Well, that's what I truly love about him and his story is he went from electronic payments to launching a space company to launching a manufacturing car company and taking on these totally different industries and going from technology to a stodgy kind of car manufacturing company. I mean, and everyone must have thought to him, this is crazy. Why would you stick to one? Just do one well, and then he knocks all of them out of the park. And, I mean, it's really incredible to see somebody who's able to do that in so many different ways, and that's what's really incredible is success and failure come alongside all of those. Is just to know that I can do this, and this is a great idea, and that was the crazy thing is electric car company at the time that he launched Tesla. Nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted an electric car. GM was producing it. Honda produced some and things like that, but they were just side projects. They weren't really. And he went all in on electric cars. And I'm sure lots of people still think he's a little crazy, but he just says, no, this is the future, and he can make it successful. And obviously, seeing Teslas around here as the best car, Consumer Reports considers them the absolute best car that's out there. It's crazy to think that, this guy can really turn failure into success. Yeah.
So last question before we wrap this up is when you think of Oak Valley College, when you think of building a higher education environment from the ground up, how do you thoughtfully build in a culture of students are able to fail successfully here? I mean, how does failure work into the environment that you're trying to build into OVC?
Great question. And the truth is this, and what I tell students, you've heard this from me many times, is this is a safe space. And so the whole idea of education, and especially higher education, is to put yourself out there and explore.
This is the time.
Because you can fail here, and it doesn't. If you fail in a project or an assignment or anything, or your dream, if your dream fails here, it doesn't cost you anything. You haven't put capital into it, and you haven't financed it. You haven't brought a lot of people around, and it's part of that experiment. And so the idea of failing and failing faster, that's the notion that we push a lot on, is to fail faster, is to know that you're going to fail, and to know when you really are passionate about an idea. I think that's one of the things that really drives me, and I encourage everyone to do this, is to say, find the passion in you that can drive you to that successful place through failure, and know that there are going to be some stumbling blocks along the way. If you're not doing that, and you're pursuing something that you're not passionate about, that to me is the biggest challenge that we face. And what I oftentimes tell students is, my goodness, you live in Southern California. So just by the nature of living in Southern California, you've already succeeded. Because there's so much around you, and there's so much opportunity, and it's just a great place to be. And so even if you fail at this dream or whatever it is that you're pursuing, or just fail at this little assignment that you're doing, get over yourself and move on, and learn from that, because that. And the old adage, you learn far more from your failures than you do your successes. I believe in that. It's to say, you will remember that. I mean, you remember the embarrassing moments from when you were young and things like that. And hopefully they don't cause paralysis for you. Hopefully they cause, an opportunity or that belief that you can move on.
But it takes the right attitude. I mean, some of us have to consciously build that attitude into ourselves,
of course.
And
I think that's what I encourage our professors all to inspire students to do.
All right, well, thanks for talking with us. Thanks for joining us. If you're watching live, or if you're watching the replay of this, we hope you check Oak Valley College out and spread the word. We're doing something new around here. Thanks.